Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Dose. We are coming at you today back in the book of Second Kings with day number 102, okay? So Second Kings, we're looking at chapters 4 through chapter 7, and we're on Psalm number 102 today, all right? Psalm 102. So we'll go ahead and jump right on in. We start off with a story about a widow and a jar of olive oil. All right, so this woman, the widow that this little story is about, before she was a widow, she was married, right? Her husband dies, and I guess he owed some debts around town, and his debtors, the people that lended to him, they end up coming to collect, and what they're going to collect is basically they're going to take this guy's kids as slaves to pay off the debt, which was kind of the common thing back then. So this woman who is now a widow, she goes to Elisha and she tells him what's going on, and she's like, "Hey, you got to help me. What can I do? I can't afford to repay the debt." So he tells her to go home, to get some empty jugs, and to basically take the flour, to take the olive oil that was in her jar and to pour it into these empty jars. And what happens is that as she pours the olive oil into these empty jars that she gathers, the olive oil in her main jar seems to never run out. So she's able to fill up all these jars and jugs with olive oil and just keep filling and keep filling and keep filling without her original jar running out. And then she's able to sell that to make money to pay off the debt. From there, we go on to a story about the Shunammite son who was restored to life. Okay, so there are these folks in Shunem, and they set up a guest room for Elisha, basically. Apparently Elisha traveled through there from time to time. He was a regular visitor, and so these folks said, "Hey, let's set up a guest room for Elisha the prophet, and that way he can, just chill with us whenever he's in town." So these folks end up having a son who dies. And long story short, essentially Elisha prays and God brings this child that had died back to life. Very cool story. From there, we read about a story that in my Bible, the heading is titled Death in the Pot, right? So this story takes place in Gilgal when there was a famine going on. The people go out and we're told that they get basically some weird kind of gourds, some sort of a gourd type vegetable or something, and they try to make a stew with it. They start eating this stew, and immediately I guess it starts making them sick, or it starts making them feel funny. They think that they're going to die, and they say, "Oh no, don't eat it, there's death in the stew, in the pot." Elisha ends up mixing some flour in with the stew, and we're told that the stew becomes edible and everything is all good. Pretty interesting. From there, we read a story about Elisha feeding 100 folks. So this is kind of reminiscent of what we read happening in the New Testament with Jesus, where he breaks the couple of loaves of bread and the couple fish, and he's able to feed thousands of people. In this case, Elisha, we're told, takes 20 loaves of bread, and he's able to feed 100 people, and he's still got plenty left over. From there, we go on to look at a story about a dude named Naaman who is healed of leprosy. Okay, and so essentially, this guy Naaman, he comes and he says, "Hey, how can I be healed? Elisha, will you please heal me? What do I have to do to be healed?" Elisha tells him, "Hey, you know what? Go bathe in the Jordan River 7 times, and you'll be healed." This guy Naaman was probably thinking, "Hey, he's going to just, snap his fingers, clap his hands, whatever, and I'm going to be healed pretty much instantaneously." That's not how it went down, though. Naaman had to go to the Jordan and bathe 7 times. So go in, bathe, come out. Go in, bathe, come out. So on and so forth. So this makes Naaman angry. He's like, "I shouldn't have to do that. The Jordan over there in that area is dirty. The water's muddy, whatever. That's not something I need to be doing." But ultimately he complies, and he finally gets cured. From there, we move on to read a little story about an axe head that floats. Okay, I don't know if you ever swung an axe, but an axe head is very, very heavy metal, right? There's really no way that that is going to float in water. So basically, some guy is cutting wood with an axe, chop, 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 making firewood or whatever. Well, when he swings the axe back, the axe head flies off and it lands in a body of water that's close to them. Well, it starts to sink. And this guy's like, oh man, that axe head was expensive. I borrowed it from somebody. I don't have the means to be able to buy another one. I am in serious trouble. And so Elisha makes this metal axe head float up to the surface so that they're able to find it and retrieve it. Very interesting story there. Next, we read about Elisha trapping some blinded Arameans. Okay, so Aram, or Aram, depending on how you want to pronounce it, they sent troops to attack Israel. Okay, and we're going to read about a rivalry that kind of continues to go on for a while. But so Aram sends troops to attack Israel. Elisha prays, and basically God blinds these troops. And then after he blinds them, I believe Elisha tells the people to feed them and then to send them home and display unusual grace and mercy to them. From there, we go on to read that that Samaria, and again, that was kind of the makeshift capital of the kingdom, the partial kingdom of Israel, right, of the 10 tribes. They had built this city called Samaria, which was kind of their capital, so to speak, or was turning into that. A guy named Ben-Hadad lays siege to Samaria, and there's this huge famine, this big famine going on. But this is pretty cool. So ultimately the siege is lifted, and it's lifted in a very, very peculiar way. So Ben-Hadad and his people, they're camped outside of the town, basically just barricading and keeping everybody inside. If anybody comes out, then, they'll likely be killed. So everybody was barred up inside of the town, inside the city with the gates closed, and Ben-Hadad and his peeps are out there just chilling, just waiting them out. Well, apparently all the bad guys, aka Ben-Hadad and his peeps, all the bad guys thought that they heard horses and chariots pulling up all around them. And when they heard this, or when they thought they heard this, they assumed that Israel had hired Egyptian mercenaries. So they basically fled and left all their stuff. They freaked out. They were like, whoa, what's going on? We're hearing things. We're about to get jumped by some massive Egyptian, regiment or something. So they take off. They just dip. So long story short, there's a couple lepers who lived, outside on the outskirts of town, and they go up to investigate Ben-Hadad's camp when they see everybody running off. And when they get there, they realize, oh, hey, everybody departed. We don't know what happened, but hey, let's take their stuff. Let's loot their stuff, and it's all good. So they go back and they tell the people at the city. The people all end up get food and supplies from the bad guy's stash, and all is well, and everybody lives to fight another day. So that was quite a bit of information for today, so I will just leave it right there with you guys for right now. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your encouragement. I appreciate your love for the Lord. So hey, until we meet again, friends, deuces. Have a good day.